Hi, welcome to this brief tutorial where today we're going to look at creating custom configuration sources for MicroProfile. One of the questions I see quite frequently is how can I read configuration files in MicroProfile the same way that I do in Spring Boot? So for example, how can I read an application.properties text file for development mode or for test mode? Well, using a custom configuration provider, we can easily do that within MicroProfile. So to start, I've created a basic application that just injects a property called role into a REST endpoint and prints it out. The default value is set to unknown. So I've got that application running now within TomEE. If I curl the endpoint, we can see that it should return that it's running in unknown mode. And there it is, running as unknown. So what we can do now is add a configuration source into our MicroProfile application to load the different application properties files depending on the profile that we're running in. So to start, we'll create a new class and we'll call it profile config source. And we'll implement the config source interface. Now to get the file working within MicroProfile, we need to add a configuration file within the meta-inf services directory. This is detailed on the documentation. So we need to create this file and specify the name of our new config source. So we'll do that now before we complete any more code. So within here, we'll create a new folder called services. And in there, we will create a new file with the name org.eclipse.microprofile.config.spy.config source. And inside that, we put the fully qualified name of our class. That's com.davidsalter.mpexample.profileconfigsource. And we'll save that. Right, so now back to our profile config source. So because we've implemented this interface, you can see that the class has created several methods for us. So we now need to just fill in the methods. So the first method is getProperties. So we'll simply return the properties. We'll then ensure that the properties are created as a map that we can return. Okay, the next method we need to implement is getValue. That simply returns us a value from the property map that we've already got. Next method we've got is getName. This is the name that we're going to use for our configuration source. So we'll just call it something as simple as profile properties file. So you can see those are the main methods that we have to implement to be able to define configuration source. Of course, we've still not loaded the properties in yet, so we'll do that now. So the first thing that we need to do is to add a constructor to our class so that we can load the properties up. We simply want to work out what the name of the file is that we're going to load, as we have different files, one for development, one for test, for example. So we'll get the profile name from a system property. And we'll call that system property app.profile. Now we want to check whether we've got a profile name at all. If we have, we'll use the name in the format something like test-application.properties. If we don't have one, we'll just use it in the format application.properties. So let's create that now. So what we're simply doing is we're setting the file name to be application.properties. If we have a profile defined, then we'll prefix the name of the profile with a hyphen to the file name. So we would get something like test-application.properties. Finally, we need to load the properties file up. So this is simply loading the properties from the class path using the file name that we've been given. We then need to convert the properties file into the map that we've stored. Finally, we just need to add some exception handling. And that's pretty much our implementation done. Let's now create some properties files so that we can see what mode we're running in. So we'll create a new file called application.properties. And inside that we'll put role equals development. And then we'll create another file and we'll call that test-application.properties. And there we'll put role equals test. Now let's run the file and check that it loads in our base application properties. Remember, we haven't set an application profile yet. If we just go and look at the pom.xml, we can see that there are no arguments, so we've got no application profile set. So if we run the application, it should tell us that we're in development mode. Now that TomEE is running, we can execute the curl again and see that we're now running in development mode. Finally, we can add a system property to say that we're running in test mode. We do that by putting -d app.profile equals test. Save that, and then let's start TomEE again. Now that TomEE is back again, we can execute our curl and see that we're now running in test mode. So what we've seen here is a very simple application using the MicroProfile configuration API that allows us to easily read in configuration from different property files, whether it's an application properties for live, for test, for development. I hope you've enjoyed that. If you've got any questions, please leave them below. Until next time, thanks, bye.